Could there ever be an atheist on a sinking ship? Assalamu alaikum brothers, sisters, friends and everybody else watching. Welcome to Thought Revolution. In this video we're going to be looking at the 31st chapter of the Qur'an, verse 32. But before we do this, before we talk about atheists on sinking ships, I want to speak about something related to this which is very powerful and important. And that is to do with knowledge, truth, certainty. How do we arrive at these things? See, we live in a world where atheists, generally people, promote this idea that science is the only way to truth, that we need logical, rational argumentation to believe in something, accept something, to be certain of something. All of these paradigms are out there. But the question is, why are these the only methods? Why are they the best methods to truth? Take science, for example. The idea of scientism, that science is the only way to truth, collapses because one, science can't give you absolute truth. It's based on induction. And two, science can only tell you about physical things. It can only observe physical things, study physical things. Therefore, that's why we say science is amoral. It can't tell you about moral truths, for example, right? So science isn't the only way to truth.
It is, however, the only way to distinguish the nature of reality, i.e., how the universe functions, which does include the question as to the existence of your deity. But nobody has said that science is the only means to reason. We acknowledge philosophy as a necessary component of science as well as ethics. However, there should always be a feedback loop between ethics and science, as right and wrong should also be based in reality to some extent, and everything can be retested, as replication in science is vital. Now, the reason we use these methods to obtain and test our knowledge is rather simple. They work and have been demonstrated to do so. The very fact that you can sit there in London recording this video, which is then posted online, is testament to the ability of science. If you have an alternative method, we'd be happy to test it and see if it stands to scrutiny and provides even better results. If not, however, that's on you.
And even that being said, most of the things we believe that scientists tell us is based on their say-so, their testimony. And the majority of the things we believe in as human beings is based on testimony, which is another route to knowledge.
Incorrect. It is based on the ability to test another person's results and replicate the findings. This is why peer review is so vital, a fact that iERA has historically chosen to ignore in their deadbeat claim that the fitra exists and everyone is born a believer. Their only sources for this are a non-peer-reviewed book which lacks method and sample size, and a second, as of yet unpublished, non-peer-reviewed book. Individual testimony is not a stable component of science, so please do not lie.
From an Islamic perspective, see, when we study the Qur'an, Allah seldom does He try to prove His existence through argumentation and these types of proofs. Instead, what God does is He, for example, speaks about His signs, right? And signs are something far more powerful because the entire universe is a sign. You are a sign, right? And what's even more powerful and beautiful about signs, and out of God's mercy, look what Allah does. He gives you special, unique signs, custom designed for you in your lives, right? Special occasions, situations, things that happen. Unlike a generic logical argument, isn't this more powerful? Isn't God giving you something much more than you're asking for? Special signs, things that happen in your life. And think about this, even as an atheist for a second, reflect over your life. And I'm sure you've had experiences, occasions in your life where you've been stuck, you've faced death, something's happened. And at that moment, you've had no other option, no one to turn to, and you've turned to God and He has sufficed you. He's taken you out of that situation.
No, that's never happened. Rather the opposite, actually. I ended up burning a Bible at one of those moments, an act which led me down the trail to disbelief and into human support, because there sure as hell wasn't any deity I, nor anyone else, could count on to help them. Fact is, you claim that these signs are more powerful than actual scientifically based arguments reliant on reasoning and logic. That is complete and utter rubbish. Your signs are not distinguishable from day-to-day occurrences, don't occur to everyone, and can be demonstrated to fail simply by highlighting the existence of suicide. That there falsifies your claim 100%. That's why science and sound philosophy are required, to give something that could only demonstrate your God without question. but you are unable to give such an argument and thus must resort to underhanded means. That does not bolster your argument, rather it weakens it.
Right? Think about this. These are signs. God gives us these signs. And even as Muslims, unfortunately, we turn to this idea that we need logical proofs for God, we need scientific data for God, even if it's indirect scientific data, so on and so forth. We don't. Allah is directing us towards something that will give us more real true certainty. And that is His signs, to reflect over His signs. The Qur'an is a sign. We call them verses, but these verses are ayat, they're signs, to reflect over His signs, use our intellects, and to accept the obvious. Right? Don't turn away from the signs. And this is why in this verse, chapter 31, verse 32, let's look at the end of the verse. God tells us that nobody denies His signs except for he who is an ungrateful traitor. Right? Think about this. And the reality is we can't. If we have lived our lives and we have been at all attentive, we would have seen these signs around us. Things happen in our lives which, have just directed us, just opened us up and made us realize there is something there. There is something that is controlling my life, directing my life, and so on and so forth. And when we've seen this, a grateful person, when he sees these blessings in his life, his hands, his feet, his teeth, his eyes, when he realizes these blessings and he just doesn't go through life like this person who's sleeping. When he realizes these signs, he's grateful. And when you're grateful, you have to be grateful to someone. You can't just be grateful for the sake of being grateful, right? And it only makes sense. The logical person knows that there must be a higher power, a creator who is directing my life, who gives me everything, who made me, and he is truly grateful, this person. But God is telling us those people, right, that deny His signs are truly ungrateful, and they're truly traitors because they turn away, even after the signs come to them.
Sure, the human writers of the Qur'an who had an invested interest in making people believe what they wrote added the same old drivel all scriptures include to allow for circular reasoning. The Qur'an is true because it says it's true, and so on and so forth. Fact is, none of the Qur'an stands the most basic inspection, as it argues that the sun sets in a muddy pool, the moon is a light source in several places, and that sperm is produced between the backbone and the ribs, to name 3 scientific errors that falsify the Qur'an's supposedly divine nature.
And what's even more powerful in this verse, if we look at the beginning of this verse, God highlights or points us towards another one of His signs, a very powerful sign. It's an experience. God says when some people are at sea and these waves start coming, high waves which cover them and shade them, and the boats are rocking and they don't know if they're going to make it out alive. At this point, people turn towards God in sincere faith, in sincere religion, and they worship God and they pray to God and they ask God to save them. Ask yourselves the question, in these situations, what logical proof are you basing your belief on? What logical proof are you relying on that's convinced you that God exists and He's the only one that can help you?
But I don't believe He exists in these situations, so I don't believe He is the only one who can help us. This is simply a lie that all theists throw out to make themselves feel superior in their delusions. The idea that even the most hardened atheist converts on the brink of death. We see this all the time with the lie about there being no atheist in foxholes, even though the existence of foxholes only benefits those without supernatural protections from a supposed all-powerful being. We see it with Ray Comfort's lie about an atheist on a falling plane, one that Muslim apologists took and made a dishonest drama about, and yes, we see it in the Quran as well. But these assertions are not reality. The very existence of hospitals is evidence of the fact that only the rare few truly put their faith in God and refuse treatment. It's an insult, really, one which has recently boiled over surrounding Christopher Hitchens. Hitchens had esophageal cancer, and even though he was clearly suffering near his end, he still managed to carry on with as much grace as could be expected for him to muster. He died as he lived, a strong atheist. But it didn't take long for religious types to start spinning the same lies about a bedside conversion as they have done for centuries around the likes of Darwin. You can lie, but expect me to call out said lie.
When you're on a plane, so many thousands of feet up and you experience turbulence and the plane is rocking and you don't know what's going on, and you start praying, even as an atheist, at that moment you start praying internally?
No, I really don't. And I've flown through a thunderstorm on my way between Spain and Norway. Not for a single second as the plane started to jolt did God enter my mind. Yeah, I tensed up a little, but then I began going over the facts that planes, whilst they try to avoid such weather, are still built to withstand it. No God, no prayer required.
What proof has come to you? What logical argument has come to you? What data has come to you that's made you believe that God exists and I need to pray to Him because He's the only one that can help me?
None, because again, that's not what happened at all. Like with the fitra, I am further evidence that your Qur'an is false.
See, the reality is these are signs. And then further down, God gives us another sign, which is when He delivers you safely to land. He helps you and He delivers you safely. And you're very grateful at this point, but then you turn away. God says that these people, they become very moderate in faith then. They turn away from God. They go back to their lives, back to doing what they're doing. They forget about God. They turn away from Him. They become ungrateful.
No, I'm just grateful to the people who actually exist and actually did something. I'm grateful to the pilots, to the ground crew, and to those who trained said people, as well as those who created the equipment. I'm grateful to people who damn well deserve my gratitude, not some non-existent entity I do not believe exists and had no demonstrable effect on my journey.
Right? This is the situation of life. This is our situation as human beings. Unfortunately, many people deliberately deny these signs. They deliberately turn away. And God gives everyone signs. But people have deliberately decided to cover them up, turn away from them, and just get on with what they're doing. This is true injustice to oneself. Then these people, they want evidence. They want proof of God. It's like saying somebody walking out on a very sunny, bright day on a beach, goes to a seaside and the sun is shining. They stick their head in the sand and then they say, give me proof of the sun. This is what we're doing. The signs are all around us, just like the blazing sun that will surround this person. But if you choose to stick your head in the sand and then ask for evidence for God, unfortunately, there's no one that can help you. So if you are sincere and you want to find the truth, then reflect over your own life, because that is the greatest sign. That is one of the greatest signs. And reflect over the book of God, the Qur'an, which is another sign, right? Reflect over these things, really think about these things, my friends, brothers and sisters, and realize, just to conclude and summarize, don't go by this false narrative and idea that science is the only way to truth, logical arguments are the only way to truth. No, God is giving you something far more personal, far more powerful, which are His ayat, His signs. Turn towards them, reflect over your own life, and worship the Creator of everything that exists, the one that gives us everything, the one that loves us more than our own mothers, and turn to Him and worship Him alone. I thank you guys for watching. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All I observe throughout my life from an objective standpoint, free of your raw assertion, is a collection of data indiscriminate from what I would expect to see if no deity existed. I know this having come to this conclusion as a believer, at which point I was no more, and then later as a strong secularist. Both polarized bias in my history, that of a believer and that of a non-believer, ultimately came to the same conclusion. The fact is, as has been demonstrated, your Quran is falsified on this claim that people turn to God at their time of perceived peril. Not simply by myself, but by other people such as Christopher Hitchens and the countless non-believers in hazardous occupations. So all this has done is weaken the Quran further. I don't imagine that was your intention, but it certainly was the result. So my advice to you in wrapping up is, next time, try to deal with an actual atheist and not some straw atheist as you have constructed here. There are a few things which I'd just like to add here at the end of this video. The first is a massive thank you to everyone who has ever donated to me via Patreon. Your fantastic support has given me the ability to keep this channel going, and I hope to continue producing content in the years to come. Secondly, I would like to thank anyone who has ever interacted with this channel. Your shares, likes and dislikes, as well as your comments of both approval and disapproval, have ensured constant feedback, allowing me to improve my work. Last of all, I would like to express my desire that you treat any of the people displayed throughout the video with respect. Whilst it is true that ideas do not demand respect, and there are many in fact which deserve reprehension, we must be careful on how we tackle said ideas in ensuring we are not simply targeting the person. In short, be the compassionate side of reason. So take care, and I'll see you next time.